Yo, what's going on to my friends, family, and all my real estate investors out there? It's your only real estate friend in these digital streets. And today's video, man, I want to keep it as short and as on topic as possible. I don't want to start rambling on or ranting for no reason. You know what I mean? I just want to keep it smooth and I just want to get to the point that I'm trying to make. Now, when it comes to black people, black community, and investing and personal finance and all of that. Man, there's a lot out there. It's a lot of information, and there's a lot of people peddling that information. And there's two sides to it. One side is dark and nefarious, where people get, robbed or they get cheated out of their money. And the other side of it, like, it's mad out of reach, like the execution or just being out of touch with where people actually are and what they starting with. Like, even if they got a little bit of money, they may not have like the technical know-how or like how to understand and they don't really understand the lingo, or they might get the lingo and understand it, but they don't have the money. So that's where the out of reach side comes into play. So I'm just trying my best to be somewhere in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Like, being able to have my hand on the pulse of what's going on, and then also making sure like I'm never a part of nothing where people get robbed or gets stolen from, essentially, because a lot of that is going on out there. And we'll get to that in another video at some point, like how we mitigate that part of it, like being like people stealing from you, or you getting fleeced out of some type of program or master class or call. Like, we ain't for none of that, man. But anyways, the point I want to make in this video, man, like, when I stand back and I look at the landscape, like, I see two things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always say that not everybody should own a business. Entrepreneurship ain't for everybody, but everybody should be investing. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody should learn how to invest. You got two markets. Pick your poison or pick your profit, right? You got stock market, got the real estate market. It's your job. It's your job. It's on you to learn that. It's not being taught in schools, and the government is not here to save you. Nobody's coming to save you. So you got two options. Pick your poison or pick your profit and run for the hills. Go get money. And the other side of it is, as black people, like, we don't understand scope. You know what I mean? We don't understand scope and clarity of like what's going on. And like, when I'm talking to black people or whatever, and I'm saying, I'm like, yo, we don't understand scope. Like, we don't think expansive enough. Like, everything is very short-sighted. Like, we can't see around corners. Some of us don't even want to look around corners. Like, and when I say see around corners and look around corners, what I mean is, we don't even give ourselves the opportunity to see what could be in the future in terms of investment. Like, purchasing a stock right now, like, whatever it is, we don't even give ourselves the chance. Like, and I understand it in certain historical context, because historically, wherever you at, whether it's America, the Caribbean, Europe, or whatever, black people have always been excluded out of everything. Always. That's just how it is on a global scale. So it's not only in America. And America is probably the most prevalent, but this happens to black people all across the planet. You know what I mean? But we get excluded, and then it forced us in a place where we can't even see around corners. So we can't see what the potential value of a stock or a company might be in 10 years. We won't even look at what the potential value of what a neighborhood, a corner, a strip, or a house can be in 10 years. And that's why we see a lot of these problems, a lot of these conversations, like, we got gentrified, or like we got moved out, or like what's going on. It's like, yo, buy back the block is a real and legit thing. Like, it's real. Like, that's how you create a base. You gotta own something. You don't create a base. You don't get empowered if you don't own anything. Sorry, you gotta own something. So you gotta be able to put yourself in a position, give yourself the opportunity to think outwardly, to see around corners, to see what things will be. And at a bare minimum, like different things can happen, world events, so on and so forth. All of that can happen, but at the bare minimum, the timeline horizon at a bare minimum is 10 years. Anything less than that, like you're playing yourself. Like, yes, certain things can happen in a 5 to 7 year window, right? But that's the exception, not the rule. So at a bare minimum, you're looking at 10 years as a floor. And then from there, sky's the limit. But we don't even give ourselves that opportunity. And, you know, building on that, we don't think expansive enough. Like, we don't broaden the scope of how we think. It's the same thing with business too. Like, I'm like, earlier I made a video saying that, you know, a lot of black people say like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, and like, when in reality they just own a job. You know what I'm saying? Like, no disrespect to nobody, not here to disparage nobody, but if you are a barber, a hairdresser, nail tech, lash tech, or whatever, like, you're not really an entrepreneur, because like you're not providing jobs to anybody else. Like, you own a job. Like, it's a business, but it's not a business that you can scale. Like, it's just a job that you own. If you ain't there, then nothing's happening. Like, in the video that the reel that I made earlier, I said like, yo, if it's Rodney's Chicken Shack, if Rodney dies, the Chicken Shack is dead. You know what I'm saying? If he ain't got no kids, the Chicken Shack is dead. And even if he got kids, it can still be dead, because we can't assume, and we don't know if his kids want to sell chicken. You know what I mean? Like, we can't assume that. So that's where we go wrong at. Whereas if we took a more expansive look at things, right? Like, thinking more broadly, and we say, all right, instead of it being Rodney's Chicken Shack, like, it could be Rodney's Foods, right? Scope. Because the thing about a lot of us too is like, we love the idea of like 100% ownership. And dog, in this world, under this like financial system, there is no business on earth, no business on a stock market that's 100% owned by anybody. You know what I'm saying? Even though like Mark Zuckerberg, he don't own 100% of Facebook, right? We gotta start understanding the difference of like controlling interest and 100% ownership. And the point I always make when I'm having these conversations amongst, you know, my community, amongst my peers, amongst my elders, whatever, I always tell them, it's better to own 25% of a cow than 100% of a chicken. It just makes more sense economically, right? You still have ownership, but you have a greater share and a greater scope of ownership. You know what I mean? So we gotta get away from that kind of thing. So back to the Rodney's thing. Instead of being Rodney's Chicken Shack, it could be Rodney's Foods Limited that owns 15 to 20 chicken shacks. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a controlling interest, right? Well, it's a parent company, a holding company that controls 15 to 20 chicken shacks, as opposed to him owning a single individual chicken shack and just living and dying by that. When you bring it up here and you say, all right, cool, it's Rodney's Foods Limited, and I need investors in order to do that, that's way more beneficial for Rodney, because he decreases liabilities because he has investors. Yes, he's beholden to them. He got to answer to them, shareholders, whatever, so on and so forth. But he lessens his liability. Like, it decreases 100%. So he could be like, all right, cool. Like, I own 51% of Rodney Foods Limited, and the rest is different investors, money from wherever, whoever, whatever, right? You decrease your liability. He decreases liability by 49% because he owns 51%. Outsource the rest of the liability. And you go on to manage and expand accordingly. Like, you expand, contract, do based on what's going on in the marketplace, based on what's going on in the economy. So that's just the general point and the general idea that I want to communicate. It's like, yo, we gotta stop thinking so finitely. It's like so one-dimensional, like very short-sighted in everything we do. Like, we can't see or think about tomorrow. Some of us, just can't, based on how we was raised and conditioned, and some of us just don't want to see it because everything is just now, 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 and none of the most popular companies in America or on Earth are 100% owned by one person. I remember I read it or I learned it a long time ago. This is 10 plus years ago. Every business is built to be sold. You either build it to be acquired and bought out by a larger business, or sell it to investment bankers via IPO and take it to the stock market. Whenever you can buy a stock in a company on the stock market through your investing account, that's a business that's being sold. They're selling portions of the business in order to raise capital to go out there and multiply and grow. You know what I'm saying? So every business is built to be sold. We gotta get away from this idea of 100% ownership or whatever. Now, in the same example with the Rodney's Foods Limited as the holding company, parent company up here, yes, we can have a controlling interest in it. Whatever that is. Like, if 30% is the greatest controlling interest in the company, and the 70% is out there, but no one part of that 70% is greater than the 30%, then yes, that's a controlling interest. But it's a controlling interest in a larger operation, aka the point that I made, like the 25% of a cow as opposed to 100% of a chicken. So that's all it is, man. That's the general idea that I wanted and I needed to communicate, because I feel like mad times we get lost or we get sidetracked due to our short-sightedness as a people and as a community. And I'm going to catch y'all in another one, man. I'm going.